The Secrets of Doctor Who is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, episode 160.
Oi! Don't be scared. All of this is new to you and new can be scary. When people need help, I never refuse. There's this moment when you're sure you're about to die, and then you're born. I know exactly who I am. I'm the Doctor. Ta-da! Ooh. Should be fine.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series of Doctor Who, and today we're discussing the latest new episode from the latest season of Doctor Who called Orphan 55. Joining me today on the panel are Father Corey Stika. Hi, Father Corey.
How's it going?
Very well, thanks, and great to have you back.
Glad to be back.
And Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, I never left.
Jimmy is steady as the rain. He's here. So let's talk about this episode. This is Orphan. It's called Orphan 55. It features the 13th Doctor. It's the second story from the latest season that we're in now, the 12th season of the new Who, and it's the second of the 13th Doctor's seasons, and it features, well, a visit to a spa, which is relaxing and calming and lots of fun, right?
Just like the Leisure Hive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of things that I had to that I could compare this episode to.
Oh yeah, it's Alien meets Aliens meets Planet of the Apes.
Actually, I kind of thought of it as a lot like H.G. Wells' Time Machine with the Eloi and the Morlocks.
Sure.
There's a bit of that in there. What it is, and I don't know. Do you want to talk about the episode itself first, or you want to talk about what you think of it first?
Oh, let's not leave people hanging. This episode was terrible.
It was a stinker.
This literally went from probably one of the heights of at least Jodie Whittaker's time as the Doctor
last week
with Spyfall.
Yep.
To probably the lows of the lowest.
This is
of
the
her
worst
time as a Doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, this was bad.
I didn't think it started bad. I think it started fine, and then it got progressively worse, and it just like started taking a total nosedive towards the end.
I will say this: Graham was a highlight in this episode. I liked Graham in this episode.
Graham is always the best thing in this right now. But it's not just the PC preachiness, the excessive PC preachiness at the very end. That's not even that's just the capper.
And they really set a new standard for that. I mean, this no matter how preachy you think they've been in the past, this sets a new standard.
I mean, this doesn't even. Well, we'll get to that, but it's the if we call Doctor Who running through corridors, if that's sort of the joke. It's Doctor Who's running through corridors, but this was really just running through corridors. The plot was a mess. We had an excess of secondary, guest characters who never got really developed, who were kind of just thrown away, almost literally.
And frankly, were annoying in some cases.
Annoying, or just as like all these nuggets of potential stories that never get developed. So there's a lot wrong with this. So we should probably get into it and talk about the episode.
Okay. So let's mention the title first. And the spoilers ahoy, everybody.
Yeah.
Orphan 55 is a planet. It's an orphan planet. It's apparently the 55th orphan planet, according to some numbering system. And an orphan planet is one, we're told, which has been abandoned because it's too toxic for life. And there's always some ruling elite that evacuates and goes elsewhere, and then they leave everybody else to die. And that's happened on this planet. And that's where this spa is located, in a protective dome, so that people can have what's called a fakecation. They go to a simulated environment that looks like they're on a beautiful planet when really they're not. They're just in a big holodeck.
Which usually is placed in the middle of a city, but this one is placed on this remote
deserted planet.
Yeah, because the plan is make a bunch of money with the fakecations and then terraform Orphan 55 back to being livable.
Right. Which, if you could do that, why wouldn't you have done it already? Never mind. One of the loose plot holes in this episode. So we start with the Doctor and the fam cleaning up a giant tentacle in the TARDIS control room, which is a fun little open. I mean, this is I like when they sort of open with a reference to some sort of thing that just happened, some adventure, some story that just happened, and we get the little hint of it.
I like the fact they're mopping. I mean, they have mops and they are mopping up the TARDIS, and it's like, you know, how does that get taken care of? The TARDIS is going to get dirty over time. How does it get cleaned up? And the Doctor makes some comment about, sorry, fam, I didn't know it was their mating season. And that's actually could explain why they have a tentacle there, because male octopuses have a special tentacle that they use, and sometimes they rip it off and present it to the female. So maybe that happened here. I don't know.
That's space cephalopods with their weird mating habits. Actually, I want to step back a sec. I realized in the open, we don't see the TARDIS in the opening credits anymore. We used to, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'd see it flying down the time corridor.
Okay, so I realized that. And there's no cold open.
During New Who, it was always a part of the intro.
Right, in New Who, that's right.
Jodie Whittaker.
Okay. And then we had no cold open, so it opens with this tentacle, and then Graham comes running in. And I'm sorry, I rewound this and watched it 3 times. I could not understand what he was actually saying in his accent, but something about he collected coupons from a coffee machine somewhere else in the TARDIS that qualified him for a free holiday at Tranquility Spa Tranquility Spa.
Right.
I'm just going to...
Also, the fam notices and comments on the Doctor's been in a bad mood, and that's because she's just learned Gallifrey has been mastered and hasn't shared that with them yet.
Right. We're still dealing with that bit, but we don't advance that storyline at all. I'm going to say any holiday that you get, any vacation that you earn by collecting coupons from a coffee machine, it's going to be low quality to begin with. So let's just stipulate this is your own fault. So he
especially if it's only collecting 6 coupons.
Exactly. Well, it's a cube. He assembles them into a cube apparently, and he doesn't realize it's a teleport machine. He does go ahead.
And that harks way back to the War Games in the second Doctor's time, where he builds the little cube that teleports to communicate with the Time Lords or whatever, or otherwise communicates with them.
That's right. And I do think Graham gets a good line here where the Doctor warns him, we've got 4 seconds now before we get teleported. And he says, I got to go fetch my Speedos before we go to the spa. And he's like, just kidding. I've already got them on.
Everybody else is just repulsed.
Everybody cringes. So that was good. That was a funny line. And then we get to the spa, and they meet Hyphen with a 3, which is apparently it's HYP3N, PH3N.
Yeah, HYPH3N, yep.
Yeah, she's apparently some sort of leet Twitter person.
Leet hacker, yeah.
And she's Squirrel Girl from Marvel Comics.
Yes, exactly. She's a squirrel person. And she's their vacation coordinator. I thought the spa seemed a bit austere, if from my point of view. That didn't seem much like much of a spa.
I wonder if that was that's an actual like architectural spot. I wasn't able to look it up, but it looks like something where it's probably like a museum of art or something like that they used.
Yeah, that is some sort of real world location, probably in Spain, because they often do, or maybe in South Africa, which is where they filmed Spyfall. So maybe they picked up some locations down there.
I thought that we had a little bit of informed attributes with the environment going on. Everyone's talking about how gorgeous it is, and I'm going, I don't know, maybe it's just because I live in Southern California, but I can imagine better.
I don't know. I was kind of...
you just saw some strange building with, nice looking scenery, but... Yeah.
I saw the beach, and it's midwinter here, so Father Corey, you just came back from San Diego.
I just came back from San Diego, meeting Jimmy in person, by the way. That worked out. I'm glad we could do that. But it's much more beautiful down there right now than it is here, cold and snow.
So we get informed, or we see that something happens to the teleport console that they just appeared on that sounds like a system virus, but we have the security staff also saying that there's not just a virus, but a physical breach. So what would happen is that someone is sabotaging their security systems that allows the native fauna of the planet to get inside the dome, and it's very dangerous fauna, apparently.
Yeah. And so we're off onto our base under siege story.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. Which we've seen many, many times on Doctor Who over the years. We have Yaz encounters this couple, this old elderly couple who apparently have been together for 46 years, but never decided to get married until this very moment. As Yaz shows up,
and the guy has an oxygen tank. I mean,
Right.
he's got a little nose plug and an oxygen tank, and
like
I'm
a 20th century one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, guys, artificial lungs? I mean, what's up with this? I mean,
Or-
later on, they
Yeah.
themselves are wearing oxygen tanks that are more sci-fi than this.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Well, in fact, almost. Well, this couple at least feels like they were plucked out of the 21st century. There's nothing about
Yeah.
these people that says anything sci-fi about them. They're just off the street in London.
Their clothes
in
look like
2020.
somebody you could see walking down the street.
Yeah.
The dress, their talk, everything about them is
Yeah.
Early 21st century.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Ryan gets infected with this virus that they're talking about. It's called a hopper virus because
Yep.
it's multi-platform. It can go from machine to living being.
I liked that. I thought that
yeah.
was a clever concept
Yeah.
because there are viruses that are multi-platform in the electronic world.
Right.
So they can adapt themselves from one operating system to another. But in fact, that was one of the big criticisms of Java when it first came out, was that
Right.
it would enable multi-platform viruses. But I like the sci-fi extension of that into, okay, now it can go biological too.
And of course, the doctor has this ridiculous cure for the virus. You have to suck your thumb and to get to the hallucinations stop, and then he's sucking his thumb and waving at bats that only he can see. Yeah, that was fun.
It was nice. She like pinches his ear and holds a bag up to his mouth, and now you're going to sneeze, and he sneezes out the virus into the bag,
Right.
and it's like suck your thumb until the hallucinations stop.
Yes.
yeah.
And then he starts chatting up this other girl. We find her name is Bella, who also apparently has the virus. Meanwhile, the security alarm is going off, telling the guests to all gather for a drill at this one location. I guess around the teleport.
Well, it's different. Depending on what part of the leisure hive you're in, it tells you to go to a different muster station over the announcements.
Oh, okay.
And so it's like, depending on where you are, you go to the safe zone. And this is actually something I haven't ever stayed at a spa really, but I have been on cruises,
Cruise ship,
you know,
yep.
because
Right.
Catholic Answers is put on cruises for its patrons, and the first thing they do when you get on the ship is you have a lifeboat drill, and you have a lifeboat station if anything starts to go. Well, if the ship starts to go down, you head to your lifeboat muster station to get on the lifeboat that you're designated to get on.
Right.
And so this muster station concept, it I don't know if they use it in spas, but they certainly do use it in cruises.
Yeah, I don't. I think a lot of times, most hotels and spas and things like that just have, if there's a fire, here's the doors you use to get out of the place,
Right.
type of deal.
Right. That sort of thing. Yes.
But
So
with teleports, it's kind of like a lifeboat. So
Yeah, that's
I
true.
guess maybe you have to go there.
especially on in a place where you're in a dome on a hostile alien planet. So
Exactly.
the doctor manages to find the security office, which is disguised as a linen closet. I'm not sure why that would
As
be.
you do.
As you do.
Oh, yes.
And she finds out that the head of the security, who's apparently the head of the spa, this what's her name? Kane.
Keen.
And this is a callback to the movie Alien, because Kane in Alien is John Hurt's character who gets the chest burster.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I thought that might be a reference to the Kane Mutiny, but maybe not. Maybe it's probably that. Actually, is probably more likely, because there are some other names in here that might also be related. Anyway, Kane is the head of the security, but also the head of the resort. Apparently, there's like 3 employees of the entire resort, but there's only 23 guests. It's a very small resort, and she and the other security guy are tracking this incursion of these big monster with teeth. Now, I have to tell you, and I mentioned this before, there was some talk before the season began that there's going to be a monster in this episode, in this season, that's the scariest monster ever, scarier even than the Weeping Angels. And it's, in fact, both Jodie Whittaker and Tosin Cole talked about how they were at certain points genuinely scared when they see the monster. And I thought it was this episode, but
I hope not.
They're certainly semi-gruesome, but they're not that scary.
They're not that scary. The monsters are ugly, but they're not terrifying to look at.
Frankly, the CGI was horrible.
Yes. Yeah.
The CGI was absolutely horrible. There was one scene where it looked like the claymation, Harry Hunthausen,
It was a little jerky.
Yeah. They're clearly people in rubber suits, and they look to me, they're like low budget aliens from Alien, and they do some of the same stuff with like the mouth goo. Right. You have the alien dripping. They do that here. So it's a visual callback to Alien. But they also have this kind of retracted flesh around their mouth, so their mouth sticks out and with big teeth, and it looks ugly. Right. And it's like, okay, guys, this is typical zombie makeup from the 80s or 90s.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was another callback to Alien, right? Because that also had the mouth projecting out thing. There were so many parts of this that were just kind of tropes pulled from other things. It was not much original. Another trope is the aliens that, when we're tracking them, move at 37 kilometers per hour, but when we see them on screen, they shamble like zombies, and you can outrun them quite easily until the plot requires them to catch up.
And another visual callback is we have people looking at monitors that show the little icons for here's where all of the aliens are versus where you are, and it's like, okay, that's straight out of Alien.
Right.
And they're changing colors as they die.
Right, as the humans die, or the guests. And we get that. The guests are getting eaten one by one. Graham stumbles upon a mechanic named Nevi and his son Silas. And we have, it's the typical trope of the progeny, not progeny, the prodigy.
The son is a prodigy. So Nevi is an engineer, and his son is a better engineer. So we've got the child showing up the father trope.
Right,
and father's kind of a stoner dude type.
Right, and it's classic. Who's the kid from the Fourth Doctor time? The mathematician with the star,
Adric.
Yeah, there's a little bit, little Adric, little bit of a
little more likable than Adric, though.
Yeah. But again,
I like the fact they had green hair. That was a nice touch.
Right.
And later on, there's a nice bit where they're wearing these oxygen tanks on their arms that glow green if it's got enough oxygen. And Nevi at one point Silas says, "How's your oxygen?" It's like, oh, green is the hair on our heads.
Right.
That was fun.
But this is, again, I go back to my earlier complaint about this, is we have this interesting situation. They kind of tell us a little bit about them. So he's apparently a dad who's not with the mom, and the son usually lives with the mom, but he left with the mom to be with the dad. And we get like this hint of a story of a character here, but they never do anything with it. I mean, it's just wasted. It's again, it's really strange.
I do like the tools that they mentioned, the names of the tools. The dad says, "Hand me a snap hammer," and the kid says, "Oh, you'll do better with a crash wrench." And it's like, those are great names for tools.
I'm going to
snap hammers and crash wrenches. That's great.
Although my hammer
I was surprised it's England, so why isn't it a snap span or a crash spanner? But whatever.
Well, that's a good point. The doctor tells the Kane at one point. She asked for some supplies in order to rebuild an ionic membrane, which is the shield that keeps the alien monsters out of the spa. And
that's actually something the doctor latches onto, and she's like, "Why do you have an ionic membrane to defend a spa?" This is apparent, and I like that was okay in the writing. That communicated effectively to us without a lot of exposition.
Right.
This is not something a normal spa would have.
Right. It filters out unapproved life forms. Is how it was described. She does say, "Hey, if I had crayons and half a can of Spam, I could build you from scratch." which is that was a pretty good line, actually, I got to say.
Mm-hmm.
So as you mentioned, the spa is built inside a dome on a planet which is hostile to life, and we do have another nice Graham moment where they have the holographic walls. The void panels, they call them, and Graham walks right into it, and he's holding his head like, "I think I had a stroke. I mean, my head." He's got this bump on his head. Did I have a stroke? What's going on?
I also like during the alien invasion of the spa sequence, you have all these announcements coming over the intercom in the de rigueur pleasant voice. It's like, please relax and leave immediately.
Yes.
Welcome to the Tranquility Steam Room. Please leave immediately.
I like if you can hear this announcement, you're not supposed to be here. Run.
Right. So the vacation hotel, they find out they have to go. Let's see. There's that elderly fellow. I have to kind of backtrack a little bit. The elderly fellow who is getting engaged with the oxygen tank, Benny, has been taken by the aliens instead of eaten like the rest of the group for some reason, and they have to go outside the dome to go save him. Kane doesn't want to go. He's like, "Oh, write him off. He's dead anyway." The doctor says, "No, we have to go." So they get in a truck.
And they're trying to be clever here because Kane says there's not enough oxygen outside. He's dead. And then his wife, whose name is either Wilma or Vilma, I couldn't quite tell, says he's got an oxygen tank. So that's the relevant. So he's got the oxygen tank to keep him alive. So that takes away Kane's excuse to not go after him.
Right.
And so then they get in Arc 2.
Yeah.
And just like in the movie Aliens, they get in Arc 2 and they start heading out to find him. And they take everybody, even though Kane knows this is a dangerous predator-filled zone. These aliens are called the dregs.
Yes.
Which is a dead giveaway for what they are.
Right.
These things are going to, this is the dregs of humanity. These are going to be humans that have mutated. And they even take Silas, the little boy, into the alien-filled zone, which, of course, I guess they kind of did in Aliens 2 or in Aliens. But that didn't work out so well in that movie either.
Let me see if you recognize this premise as I give it to you. The doctor gets inside this vehicle that travels across an alien landscape that is toxic to life, and it breaks down, and they can't leave it because there's aliens outside who want to kill them. Huh. What does that sound like?
We heard that one before.
I don't know, but I think I woke up at midnight thinking about that once.
Exactly. I mean, I stopped the show. I was watching it on the DVR, and I said to my wife Melanie, I said, "This is totally a ripoff of Midnight, but not as good." So
just like Planet of the Dead.
Right. The planet has become too toxic for life. The doctor explains what it means for it to be Orphan 55. It's uninhabitable, climate change, blah, blah, blah. The ruling elite get to leave and sign off all responsibility for the dregs that are left behind, etc., etc. So
I did like the visual desolate landscape outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, although there were some nice green trees.
Well, I mean, they color corrected it to look more gray, but I thought it looked okay. It was visually nice. I thought it very much Prometheus-y.
Yep. We do get Ryan continues to chat up the young woman Bella that he met badly. I have to say Ryan does not do well at this, but she seems responsive nonetheless. So good for Ryan. Unfortunately, because this obviously is not going to end well. And the dregs set up a trap. They have Benny now outside of the broken down truck, and he says I have two questions for Vilma, his lady friend. First question is, will you marry me? And of course I will. And my second question is, will you kill me now, please? And which is really, wow, that's a dark moment.
That's also out of a deleted scene in Alien, where Ripley kills Dallas, who's been trussed up by the alien. But the thing is, we don't ever see Benny in his. We have no reason why he would want to die. I mean, for all we know, he's sipping tea with the dregs. We have no visual indication that anything at all is wrong with him. And that's true throughout the episode. We have all these people dying, apparently. We never see the consequences.
Yes,
it's one of the things that seriously undercuts the drama of this, because if we're just told people are dying off screen conveniently, come on, we need to see some of this.
I mean, the closest we see is one guy who's crawling on his hands and knees, trying to get away, and then he's dragged back. That classic where he's crawling to get away and then gets drugged back in by the alien. It's like, okay.
So, and the dregs apparently are smarter than we think, but first, because they had set a trap for the truck. I mean, that's why the truck gets stopped. they have to abandon the truck, and even though they're completely surrounded by the dregs, they manage to hop out a hatch on the bottom and run for a maintenance hatch in a tunnel nearby, which Kane is going to let them go, and she's going to sacrifice herself to let them go, and the doctor doesn't let her, which is a good thing because when they get to the hatch, it's got a code that they have to punch in to get in. So unless they had the code, the doctor could have sonicked it, I suppose. But then they climb down and leave the hatch open.
Yeah.
Because, of course.
Also, on the way to the hatch, Vilma is being an idiot and is like calling out for Benny, which is just going to attract the dregs' attention. And Yaz puts her hand over Vilma's mouth to stop her from doing this. It's like, wow, that's a little aggressive for Doctor Who. I mean,
I'd do it, but
well, sure, but also then Kane shows up and says, "Oh, by the way, I killed Benny off screen, and you didn't even hear a gunshot." So
I took care of him.
Death was that?
Well, in fact, it was very cold. It was like, well, Benny, did you see Benny? Oh yeah, I took care of him. I shot him like he asked. Like, just very cold, very matter of fact. I mean, there's a little bit of a later on someone says something, but not much here, and so it's really cold. So we get down, and then we get the twist, the big twist. It turns out that the person who is behind the Hopper virus and letting the dregs get into the dome is this Bella, who claims to be Kane's daughter. Which the big trick on us, the audience, is that both Kane and Bella, the actresses playing these two characters, are of different races. They don't look at all alike.
Right.
And so
even apart from being different races, they don't look anything alike.
Right. There's just no sense that they could possibly be related. But so the joke's on us. But we get this really thin justification that Bella is mad at her mother for having abandoned her and her terminally ill father, and leaving them behind. And
so he wasn't terminally ill, I don't think, early on. But she says, when I was about Silas's age, my mom, quote unquote, died. And by that, she means my parents separated, and she never came to any of my birthday parties. And her other horrendous sin is she named me Trixabella.
Right. And that means I'm going to commit mass murder and kill everyone in the spa to get back at her.
Yep.
I mean, it's just a bizarre, like, thin, like she's not, they don't try to establish that she's mentally ill or anything like that. It's just, this is her justification. She built bombs and
multiple bombs. And also Kane is not a sympathetic character at all.
Right.
Kane is like, oh, sorry, there's not enough oxygen out there. He'll be dead before we can get him. And Kane is like resisting at every step. And both Kane and Bella are like really unsympathetic people.
Right. Yeah. And which means I don't feel like I'm on one side or the other in this. And I'm left as the audience going, I don't really care. Like, I just don't care about either of these people. I just want the doctor and people to escape.
Yeah.
And so Bella at gunpoint tells Kane to tell her where the maintenance teleport is so she can get back into the spa quicker than everyone else. And as the dregs approach, Ryan, grabs her and teleports out, quickly. I'm not sure why the others don't also use the maintenance teleport.
They said it only have one. It only had enough power for one use. The old.
My sense was it had enough power for one use, but we're all going to go together. And then Ryan triggered it early, taking Bella with him, and now the others have to go through the tunnels, including a drag nest, because of course they do.
But of course. Yep. But meanwhile, as they're going through the tunnels, the doctor finds a sign on the wall in Russian, which is the clear indication, and she tries to hide it from Graham and Yaz for some reason, but they insist on her telling them what it is, and she says it says Novosibirsk, which is a city in Russia in Siberia, and so they realize this is H.G. Wells' The Time Machine with the Eloys and the Molochs and the dregs of the Molochs and so on and so forth.
It's also Beneath the Planet of the Apes, where they find an underground subway system that shows them that they're in England and thus on Earth.
And so we need Charlton Heston falling to his knees and yelling, "They've destroyed it all, damn them," or something along those lines.
Now, at this point, I thought they were going to do something maybe interesting and tie this into Gallifrey. because the doctor has just found out that her planet has been decimated, and now Earth has been decimated for the companions. And I thought they were going to build on that, but they don't.
Yes.
Also, and this gets into, we'll talk about this at the end when we talk about the end of the episode, but this is not unprecedented on Doctor Who. There have been many stories that have dealt with the fact that at some point in the future, Earth becomes uninhabitable, probably multiple times, and then it gets rebuilt. And people come back from the colonies and recolonize it and stuff. What I thought they would do that would be interesting is say, we've got a problem now because now there's this alternate humanity-derived species out there, the dregs, and they need to breathe carbon monoxide. They can't have a normal oxygen atmosphere anymore. And so that means if you terraform, you're going to kill all the dregs.
Right. We don't get that.
We don't get that.
So instead, what we get is the first of several climate change lectures from the doctor, some preaching. And certainly not even the worst one yet. Still to come.
Nope.
As they go through the drag nest, the doctor has used up her oxygen because she doesn't stop talking, and so she uses up her oxygen faster than everybody else.
That was a fair point. I like that.
Yep.
That was okay.
Yeah.
Also, one thing, even though she's been talking a bunch, she has not been gun lecturing, which is interesting because people are toting around guns to deal with the dregs.
Early on to Vorm, she yells at him for shooting at the dregs in the spa instead of, I don't know, talking to them.
Yeah, but that goes out the window pretty quick as they're under threat, and she stops lecturing about guns or other lethal means of dealing with the dregs.
Right. So they end up having to go through a drag nest. They apparently sleep standing up, and she has to do a mind meld with one of the dregs to discover that they are actually were humans. I guess there's a what is it called? A species memory, like a trans, like a generational memory, generational memory that she accesses or something. But it's the second sort of telepathic episode in a row.
So Jodie Whittaker's doctor is now the most telepathic doctor ever because she's done 4 telepathies in 2 episodes.
Yeah. So it's interesting that they've decided to go this direction with it.
Also, she discovers just before she does the mind meld with the dreg, she discovers the dreg is breathing out oxygen. So they're like plants. They take in CO2, they breathe out O2.
Or as she puts it, very angry trees.
What's that?
They're essentially very angry trees.
Yeah, but it recharges her oxygen supply.
Yes. Meanwhile, Silas, well, they get back to the security office. Silas, the boy.
By the way, by this point, Vilma has self-sacrificed off screen.
Oh yeah,
and Kane has self-sacrificed off screen.
As far as we know,
2 people charged to their deaths, and we didn't see any of that.
Right. Well, Kane, as far as we know. Silas takes off. Well, they get back to the security office, and they're trying to get everything back online. They're trying to get the teleports back online so they can get out of there. Nevi, I'm trying to remember all these names. Nevi is complaining he doesn't know how to fix it. Silas is trying to tell his dad this is what you got to do to fix it, and doesn't get listened to. So he does the immature child thing and runs off into danger.
Yep.
So because it's a trope. So the doctor and Bella go to find him. Graham is helping Nevi fix the teleport, and Ryan and Yaz are trying to barricade the breach in the wall in the spa using lounge chairs, which doesn't seem to be very effective.
I just have in my notes, action sequence starts, which means nothing is going to advance the plot till this is over.
Right.
Yep.
So the doctor and Bella, they managed to lure the drag alpha male into the security room and talk to it, because the doctor can talk to things, and apparently it understands. And they basically come up with this bargain where you're stuck in here. You need our carbon dioxide, and we need your oxygen. So we're going to swap places in the security cage and escape.
Why? Why don't we all just stand around each other? Why does the dreg want to get in the security cage after he's let the doctor and Bella out?
Well, because they won't open the outer door until he does. He's stuck in there with them.
Why does he want the outer door open if he needs their oxygen?
Well, he eventually is going to want to get out of the office, right? I mean, he's not going to want to live in there forever, so he's going to want them to open that door and not be a prisoner in there, I guess.
But if he needs their oxygen that bad, why doesn't he? Why don't it's like I should follow you out and we're buddies now because we have a mutual breathing ecosystem developed.
Well, that would fit in with the climate change discussion here. Anyway, here in my notes I write, okay, at this point the plot is a huge mess and it's mainly just everyone running around through quarters. They get to the teleport working through, whatever, wavium.
The kid is, of course, the one to do it because the kid has to show up dad. It's the dumb dad trope.
Yes.
Also, Ryan and Yaz use one of Bella's bombs to totally blow up a bunch of dregs. I mean,
in fact, almost the whole place.
It's like, where's the bomb lecturing, Doctor? Come on.
Exactly.
Surely there was a better solution than use the bomb to blow up the dregs.
And
it's
of
almost
course,
like she likes explosve devices better than guns for some reason.
Because they're indiscriminate in who they kill.
Right. So of course the Hopper virus comes into play because the Hopper virus for some reason converts the bad fuel into the good fuel that powers the teleport. There's too many people for the teleport to operate properly, so Bella decides to stay behind because she's responsible for this. And just as she's about to die, Kane shows up again. Her mom comes, and they're going to die together.
Or maybe not die together.
Or maybe not.
We don't see it either way.
Right.
Yep.
So our gang manages to teleport back to the TARDIS, at which point the Doctor immediately engages the TARDIS and goes back to the spa a second after they left and rescues... Wait, no, that didn't actually happen.
Oh, no, that didn't happen, did it? Yeah.
No, for some reason, they don't. They stand around instead, and the Doctor lectures us about how this is one possible future and one possible timeline. So now we do multiple timelines with the Doctor, apparently.
Which is new. This is not the way we've had the Great Disaster explained to us in the future.
Right.
If you're this is a potential serious change to the dramatic structure of the show.
Yes.
Because if every time we go into the future, it's just one possible future, that significantly undercuts the drama and the ongoing narrative of the story where we have a basic understanding of the future history of the Whoniverse.
Right.
So now we're in Back to the Future, not Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Right. But this is so that we can have a long, very direct lecture on climate change that's extremely preachy. Now, look, if people are very concerned about climate change or people want to, I'm not talking about being a climate change denier or acceptor. I just, however you feel about this.
No. If you're going to say denier, which is pejorative because it assumes it's true, then you need to assume the reverse, a climate change. The opposite of a climate change denier is a climate change dupe.
Okay.
Because they're parallel insulting terms.
Sure. But whichever way you fall on this spectrum, you have to realize, and I've heard several fans online talking about this. This is extremely preachy. This is a bit, in fact, over the top preachy.
They basically took, as we're talking about different tropes they pulled off, they basically took Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth and stuffed it in the last 5 minutes of this episode.
Right. And this is why we've changed the dramatic structure of the Whoniverse so that we could say we can change the future that we're doomed to fall into this Orphan 55 future where we've destroyed our environment. And so the future can be changed just so the Doctor can say that. And she lectures the companions about this. I'm not sure what they're going to do about it, but she lectures them.
Well, they're just the faces that are there to justify her lecturing the audience,
right?
Because I went on yesterday. I went on YouTube and looked for the instant reviews of this that fans were doing. Yeah. And I did not look at any of the channels that I knew would hate it, like Nerdrotic. Mm-hmm. I was like, I know what he's going to say. Forget him. He's just toxic.
Right.
But I went down, starting at the top. I looked at 6 videos with 7 reviewers in them. All of them were like, well, I don't really think this is that political a show, despite the criticism, or I actually agree with the global warming message. But every single one of them said this was too on the nose.
Right.
That this was bad. It was badly handled. And even if they were in favor of the message or didn't think the show was overly political these days, they saw this as a serious misstep. Yeah. Every one of them. And most of them used the phrase on the nose, which was the phrase I had in my notes. This is way on the nose. Well, what they do is she's lecturing the audience, and it's be the best of humanity. as if, clearly she's not talking to the fam because that's 3 people.
Right.
They're not going to change the future. With 3 people, they're not going to stop global warming. And so she's clearly talking to the audience, and she says, be the best of humanity, and then we cut to a shot of a dreg screaming. So that's the alternative if we, the audience, are not, because the fam doesn't see the dreg screaming. It's just the audience. Yeah. So clearly we're lecturing the audience. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of how science fiction cautionary tales work. In a science fiction cautionary tale, yes, you show how some trend could go horribly wrong if we don't watch it, and that's fine, but you do not directly preach to the audience about it.
No. Well, it's this entire episode. The entire 45-minute episode was written for that speech.
Yeah.
They basically took that speech and wrote an episode around it. And, it's funny because one of my complaints against a lot of so-called Christian fiction is that's exactly what they do.
Right.
They do the same exact thing.
Mark Twain is famous for having said fiction must never overtly preach, but always covertly preach. And here they forget Mark Twain's lesson. They start overtly preaching.
Yeah.
So interesting, this episode was written by Ed Heim, who is also the writer of It Takes You Away from last season, which was
one of the best.
Right.
Yeah, that was a good episode.
So it's just they the producers, whether it was Ed Heim or Chris Chibnall or whoever, decided we needed to do a climate change episode. I mean, that's really how it comes to me, because everything else about this episode is just paint by numbers. It's messy. It's obviously pulling from tropes, and it's all looks to me like it was all just built to get to this scene. I mean, we've had plenty of scenes of the Doctor in this grand speech, and some really good ones, I think. I mean, you guys had different opinions, but I've thought of some good ones that in the Capaldi's time and Tennant's time and Matt Smith's time. But this one is just like this is way over the top in the wrong direction, and I just
and they break the fourth wall at the end by showing the audience part of the Doctor's message with the screaming drag that the companions never see. So they're breaking the fourth wall to lecture us.
Yes,
this is very different than like the ecological disaster things we've seen before on Doctor Who, like the Green Death or something back in John Pertwee's time.
Well, of course, having grown up in the 80s, I'm sure Dom, you Jimmy both feel the same way. I have expected to hear the fam go, and now we know. And Doctor said, and knowing is half the battle.
Captain Planet.
Oh man, yes. Or I mean, we've seen the climate or saving the environment stuff before. What was the one with the in Martha Jones' time where the exhaust, the things were generating the exhaust?
Yeah, they're in the underworld subways.
Yeah.
In New York.
No, not that one. The other one where the Sontarans, the
Poison Sky.
Poison Sky, yes, the two-parter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but you're right. I mean, we've seen this, this sort of messaging multiple times. Those times, at least it was in the service of a bigger story that was still entertaining, still had plenty that was good about it. This one, it started off okay and just descended. I mean, this is the worst of so far of the 13th Doctor, in my opinion, and one of the worst in a long time since maybe the Moon Egg.
I tried to watch this episode twice. I got about halfway through the second watching, and that will be the last time I watch this episode.
Right. Yeah, there's so many holes, so much that just it doesn't work, and then the cherry on top is this preaching at the end. I mean, even without this preaching at the end, this was not a good episode. This preaching is.
And the sad part is, I think if we sat down, the three of us, for an hour, could have made an episode that said the same thing that was 1,000 times better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And none of us, and Jimmy's about the only professional writer of the three of us.
Right. So,
not typically fiction, though sometimes.
Yeah. So I do want to wrap up because we got some great feedback. So we want to finish on a high note.
Let's get to that.
But any last thoughts on this episode from either of you? Anything left to say?
Good riddance.
Yeah, exactly.
Rest in peace. All right, let's get to our feedback, which is from our listeners, which we really appreciate. The first bit of feedback is on our episode 155, our Big Finish discussion of the Big Finish audio drama Live 34, from our friend Bennett Gillespie on Facebook, who's from Great Britain. And he said, this first comment, he said, I have a lot of cognitive dissonance on this episode for him. And I wasn't sure what it meant, but Jimmy, you responded to him. I think you picked up on what that was about, his cognitive dissonance.
Well, and it's something I had wondered about when we recorded Live 34, because it plays with themes from recent British history that are pretty delicate, because you have the Doctor playing the head of a political party that is accused of being a front for a terrorist organization.
Right.
And that is an analog for Gerry Adams. Gerry Adams is an Irish politician who was the head of Sinn Féin during the Troubles, and people would accuse Sinn Féin of just being a front for the Irish Republican Army. You then had Ace as the rebel queen, as the effective head of an Irish Republican Army like organization. But in Great Britain, Sinn Féin and the Irish Republican Army were perceived as the bad guys, but the Doctor and Ace are clearly the good guys. And so this is going to send off weird cognitive dissonance for people. And so I wondered how Bennett and other folks from the UK would respond to this. I could easily see people saying, it's not my cup of tea. I can also see people saying this, and I tend in this direction, but I understand how people, their mileage may vary. I find it interesting to have stories like this with that kind of dissonance in them, because it invites us. I mean, so much of what both sides in a conflict say is propaganda.
Right.
I mean, certainly here in America, I don't trust either Republicans or Democrats.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
I have political opinions, but in terms of party behavior, both sides spew lots of propaganda and distort the truth.
Yep.
And having an episode or a story like this that recasts things in a way that invites us to think how much of my perceptions are based on propaganda versus reality. And it's not entirely comfortable, but that also makes it more interesting and more textured as a story, because the truth is neither side is pure villainry. There are always people with a mix of good and bad on both sides of a conflict.
It also challenges us to be cautious that when we see situations in life that on the surface appear similar to other things we've experienced, not to apply it as a template necessarily, because while it may appear to be similar, it may not be the same thing. So while there's a surface appearance between, say, what happens in Live 34 and the Troubles, it wasn't the same situation. It was different, and applying a template would have been a bad thing to do.
And it also serves as a cautionary tale for, because there are things in Live 34 that are more extreme than anything that happened in the Troubles. I mean, using people for fuel is not what happened in the Troubles, and not in any literal way. And so it also, though, does serve as a cautionary tale of we need to look out for situations that crop up repeatedly in history and that can crop up again, and we need to be on our guard against those. And Bennett came back and essentially confirmed that, and he and I had a very nice exchange on Facebook, but he essentially confirmed that, that's what the source of the cognitive dissonance for him was. Yeah,
it's a very good comment. So if you get a chance to be on our Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, check it out. We have good conversations with listeners there, and good conversations among listeners. So definitely check it out. So we have some feedback on our Skyfall episode from last week, and we have the first one is from Brian Roberts on Facebook, who lets us know that, of course, Lenny Henry, who played the big baddie, one of the two big baddies on that episode, he's played the Doctor before. In the 80s, he had a show called the Lenny Henry Show, which apparently was like a sketch show or a variety show, and they had Colin Baker regenerate into him for a sketch. And
so he's the alternate Seventh Doctor.
Yes, and it was. I watched it. It's on YouTube. And I'll try to get the link into the show notes. But it was humorous. It played with some of the tropes of the time, and that sort of thing. And then he informs us that American listeners may not know how much of a national treasure Lenny Henry is. I always look forward to the Lenny Henry show when I was a teenager, and he became really popular with kids in the late 70s and early 80s on the same Saturday morning kids show that launched Sylvester McCoy's career. So, very interesting.
I liked him better as the Doctor than as the bad guy Bill Gates in this.
He definitely played the very dislikable rich guy.
Yes. But and then Emma Croik on Facebook writes, around the hour and 25-minute mark, you discussed the mind wipe of Ada and Noor. You mentioned the predestination paradox and that a brain wipe was not needed to get out of this situation. But I believe this is mildly in contradiction to your feelings of last year. She says, I remember when you discussed Rosa last season, you expressed annoyance at historical episodes where the Doctor is the reason for the success or ideas or importance of historical figures. Like he's the one, he leaves a hint, and that causes the historical person to come up with whatever their great idea was in actual history. And we're pleased that they avoided this issue with Rosa, allowing her to stay the hero of her own tale. In essence, if the Doctor is the reason for a historical figure's fame, that was not ideal, in your opinions. I believe you mentioned the Shakespeare Code and Unicorn and the Wasp, where Donna, Martha, and the Doctor were basically made responsible for Agatha Christie's and Shakespeare's best ideas, and were annoyed at that. In my opinion, if the writers had not chosen the mind wipe option, the same annoyance would occur. It would have made, as you suggest, a predestination paradox, meaning that Ada Lovelace, at least in her universe, is less impressive than she used to be. So to me, the mind wipe seemed the best option for the writers to take.
I appreciate that. I think for me, the ideal solution would be another one, because I don't mind it if there's like an occasional hint that influences, like, oh, I hadn't thought of that as a possible play I could write. Thank you. You know, I mean, I don't mind it that occasionally. When they do it relentlessly, I think it's a problem, which I think they kind of did with Shakespeare.
Shakespeare was bad for that. Yeah.
But the what I would have done is just blow past it.
Right.
Here. I didn't like the casual mind wiping because it sets a bad precedent for the future. And I would have just ignored the fact and not dealt with it. No, I wouldn't have said it was a predestination paradox. I mentioned they could have done that if they needed an on-screen explanation, but I didn't think they needed an on-screen explanation. Just tighten a couple of lines of dialogue and ignore it. And because the Doctor hasn't, I think they could have handled it without it being a problem.
My main objection was how casually she overrode their objections. That's really, they were like, she forced herself on them in a sense to wipe their mind.
It was really shocking, of course, when he did that to Donna, because he had to, as part of the, keeping her from dying, basically.
Right.
And that was shocking, and rightfully so. But then, she just kind of goes, oh, yeah, I'm going to wipe both your memories. Poof, you're gone.
Yeah, and that's really manipulative of another person, and it kind of cheapens what happened with Donna. To just have that casually. And are they going to be doing that from now on every time they meet a historical figure? Or because it's going to get old fast. I mean, it got old doing it twice in one episode.
Yeah.
And frankly, how much of what Ada Lovelace saw could she translate into what she could do in 1834? I mean, it's just, that. Right. So it was unnecessary.
You got a glimpse of a cell phone. That doesn't mean you can build one in 1834.
Right. Or great programming. At most, she would know it can be done. But the Doctor has left people with knowledge equivalent to that plenty of times in the past. So it was, like you said, Jimmy, it wasn't necessary. And then finally, Kelly Brown writes on Facebook, I really enjoyed these episodes. After a not-so-spectacular last season, I was pleasantly surprised with this one. I was also surprised how quickly they brought back the Master. I love this Master. He's a delight to watch. The actor really is embodying the essence of the character. I watched both episodes again after knowing who O really was, and I saw small hints of where the Master comes through, such as when he's talking to Graham about his research on the Doctor and tempts Graham to look at it. Also, was I the only one who noticed that the Master as O was slightly flirty with Yaz? Even after the reveal in the plane, the Doctor says something like, "Stick with me, Yaz."
The Master says that, yeah.
I'm sorry, the Master.
He's clearly flirty with Yaz.
Yes. Yep.
One thing I think I can't remember if I had mentioned it or not, but I love how the Master made his name O, just so that. Actually, I think I mentioned it to Jimmy in person, but how the Master made sure his name was O in MI6, just so when he had that reveal to the Doctor, she would go, "Oh." And that is such a Master thing.
It is, and then she turns it around on him, because at the end when she plays the recording of his evil plot for the light bulb aliens, the Master's like, "Oh," and the Doctor says, "That's your name. Don't wear it out."
Right. Yeah, that was good. That's hopefully, yes, we'll get more of that kind of story this season than the one we've just talked about.
Yeah. By the way, I want to clarify something from earlier in the episode where we were talking about climate change and terminology. I don't prefer either climate change denier or climate change dupe. I prefer neutral terms that respect both positions. I would probably go with climate change skeptics and climate change believers or climate change affirmers or something like that. Yeah. I like neutral terms that respect other people's positions, and that's why I don't like climate change denier, because it's denier is a factitious or a factive term that presupposes the truth of the alternative position, and it comes across to people who are climate change skeptics as just as insulting as if someone called you a climate change dupe.
Right. Okay, that's fair, and that's a good clarification. I'm going to try to remember to do that myself. All right, so as we wrap things up, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Doctor Who, including Ben B., Christopher M., Dean S., Brent W., and Richard V. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of Orphan 55? Maybe you had a different opinion than we did, or you want to join in with what we had to say. Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/Doctor Who or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, or send us an email to drwho@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next new episode, enticingly called Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. Until then, Father Corey Stika, thank you for joining me in sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Aiken, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, this zone of tranquility is compromised. If you can hear this message, you shouldn't be here. Leave immediately.